Hi guys, and welcome to this practice piano with me session. So I did one of these once and you guys seemed to enjoy it. So I thought I would do it again, and I tried to incorporate some of your feedback. A lot of you were asking for more details about my practice process. And so what I did in this video is I spent much more time talking through my process as I learned this piece, which is Tchaikovsky's November from the Seasons. So what we'll do in this video is we'll start from the very beginning of my journey. I will talk you through my progress. You can kind of see me practice little bits and pieces along the way. And then at the end of this video, I will do like kind of a final review, talk about the things that I learned, how long it took me to work on this piece, and I'll show you kind of where I'm at. So let's get started. So I'm trying a little bit of a different approach with practicing this piece. Instead of doing just like small amounts of practice every day, what I'm doing is small amounts of practice, but a lot in one day. So in the last, yesterday I did 2.5 hours. Today I'm hoping for about an hour. It's not going to be as intense. But what I'm trying to do is burst through the beginner phase of a piece. So what I'm doing right now is practicing November by Tchaikovsky, and I've gotten through all 5 pages. And yesterday I basically just spent the day getting through the whole thing, working through it. And today what I'm doing is ironing out the kinks, I guess, even though there's still quite a lot of them, and getting a sense of how fast I'm playing different parts and stuff like that. I just wanted to show you my music too, so you could see how I've got things sectioned off a little bit. I divided the entire piece into various sections like theme 1, second part, etc. just because it gives me really concrete places to go and like sections to work on. And what I've been doing today is I've been going through and adding in whatever tempo I'm kind of comfortable with. And this is kind of hard to see, but you'll notice I have a few bars with little asterisks like this one over here. Sorry, I'm just trying to scan through. I know there are other ones, but like there's one way over here. But the idea with the asterisks is those are the bars that I struggle with and I have to play slower. So that kind of keys me into the bars that need extra attention every time I sit down to practice. So if I do this whole theme 1 part, I might play it through once or twice, but work on this bar in particular several times because it's quite a bit more challenging. So this is at the 3-hour mark. I'm gonna play the section by section, so the first theme. And that was the bar that I kind of had to work through quite a few times. So now that I'm on the development part, getting it a little bit faster, more up to speed, I spent the last half an hour specifically working on just one part. It's pretty much a page, it's like a little shy of a page. And this part has some polyrhythms and challenging rhythms. And I managed to get it mostly up to speed today, not really with expression, but I've been playing with the metronome. Just spent the last half an hour doing a quick review of the part that I was working on yesterday. That part's still fine. It was a little shaky for the first couple minutes, but then I got it back. And then I did the exact same process with the beginning of the piece, which I will play. It's going to be just a little rusty, but I'm aiming for mostly up to speed right now. One thing that I noticed about 15 minutes in is that it wasn't really getting faster. It was getting a little bit better, but it wasn't turning the page, getting comfortable the way that I was wanting it to. And I kind of just wanted to stop working on the part. I was like, well, no, it's over, I'm done, I'll just save it for tomorrow. But I was like, no, I committed half an hour to this part, so I'm gonna do half an hour on this part. And within 5 minutes, it started turning, it started getting easier, it started getting faster. So that was an interesting point to break through. So I just spent the last hour on the last, basically like 2 or 3 lines of the music. This is what I consider to be the most difficult part. So I partially memorized it, and that helped a lot. So I'm gonna play through it. And then it kind of just plays out to the end. Now, there's so much like variation and lots of movement. So when I started this half an hour, I was like, it was really, really painfully slow, which is partly why I memorized it, because I wanted to kind of focus on how my hands were working together. But it's amazing how far something can come in just like 25, 30 minutes. So it's been about 2 hours and I've been working on the performance level. I've worked my way through the first and second page, and I've just been spending probably the last hour and a bit trying to speed up this middle part. So I'm working on my landings here, and when I blow a landing, I generally like to go through it, slow it down a little bit. Endurance on those fast, high staccato notes is going to take a long time to build. That's going to be one of my main projects, getting it up to speed. So I've been playing another hour working on speed. I would say probably 45 minutes of that hour has been spent on metronome work with this part. So what I've been doing is just incrementally boosting it up. Today's session, I was like, okay, I'm gonna do half an hour, and I'm gonna get it from 90 beats per minute to 100 beats per minute. And that's what I did, and that's what I'm gonna play. So I've done about an hour and 45 minutes, and what I've accomplished since then, probably about half that time I've been just working on speeding up the part. So I've gotten it to about 120, and I think that's where I'm gonna sit for a while, because 120 is kind of like my cap. I can feel it start getting a little bit out of control at that level. I really wouldn't mind getting it to like 130, 140 eventually, but I think 120 is like a good place to settle. And how I do this is, every day when I kind of work through this part, I put on the metronome at 110 and I play it through. My fingers are kind of clumsy this morning. I'll do it at 110 until I'm like back in the zone with it and I'm comfortable, and then I'll speed it up to 115, do the same thing, then 120 and do the same thing. That's how I plan to do things for probably the next week. Another thing that I've done is I've memorized the first 6 pages, and there's 7 pages in this piece, so it's really close to being fully learned and memorized. Everything's mostly up to speed except for these fast sections. So since I last recorded, I've played another 3 hours and 20 minutes. So I'm in the home stretch now. Everything is really close to being up to speed, and every time I have a practice session, I'm working on I'm kind of blocking things off in 5-minute increments because it's all about getting things fast. Now, I just want to show you this. Hopefully this is showing up on the screen. So the way I'm doing this is I'll spend 5-minute blocks working on speeding things up. So I'll maybe spend 5 or 10 minutes going from 110 to 120. 120 is my goal speed. And maybe I'll spend another 5 minutes working on another fast part, and so on. So I'm really micromanaging parts now. And one thing that I'm starting to find is that about half the piece is coming together and feels like it flows and is natural. And the other half, the half that's really fast, doesn't really flow yet, but at least the speed is close. So I just want to show a little bit at the ending because that's where I've been spending most of my time. So you can hear my speed is still a little bit sloppy, but it's getting there. And the whole piece is kind of like at that point where it's close. I feel like I can see the finish line now. So I did the final time count tally now that I've finished working on the piece. And I want to say I'm not finished. It's not like I've hit a point where it's so good. It's really not. I feel like I'm 80% of the way there, but I've hit the point with it where it needs time to just marinate and time to settle. So I don't want to spend another month kind of doing the same things, because what I'll be doing is spending the next month doing short reviews of this piece to just give it time to settle. But anyway, I spent 4 hours in the beginner phase, and that's just kind of learning all of the, actually reading through the music, getting competent at a really slow tempo. I spent 8 hours and 15 minutes developing it. So this is bringing all of the pages not up to speed, but just working through them so that they're a lot closer to being finished. And then I spent the most time in the performance phase, which I spent 9 hours and 40 minutes doing. So the performance phase is getting things up to speed. I spent a lot of time, especially with the second half of this piece, working on speed. That was the main focus, but also working on other elements like expression, dynamics, control, stuff like that. So in total, I spent 21 hours and 55 minutes, so about 22 hours working on just this piece. So what I want to do now is review the results, and like I said, it's not fully there. I feel a lot more comfortable with the first half of the piece as opposed to the second half, which is much faster, and I just that part hasn't quite settled for me yet. But I'm gonna play through all the parts, and I'm going to talk about those parts and what I've been working on and what still maybe needs work at this point. So the introduction is the easiest part of the piece, but I didn't want to become complacent about it, so I made sure to spend a lot of time just finding a certain playfulness, finding a little bit of movement, and I think that I'm pretty comfortable with this part. Attached to the first part is a transitional, kind of lots of arpeggiated patterns in the left hand. And this part kind of comes and goes for me. I had to spend a lot of time working on left hand accuracy, because when I'm flying through those arpeggios, I'm not always super clear on it. So that's one thing. I want to be able to polish that part a little bit more. Section is when I start getting into the bigger chords in the right hand, and this took me forever to learn because it was polyrhythm. It was 3 against 2, or I don't know if it was 3 against 2, but it was triplets and 4/4 time regular notes. Once I got it, it clicked. It took me a long time to settle this part because I kept playing it like really, really loud and intensely. So I had to start concentrating on scaling it back. And one thing that I'm still not great with in this part is having the melody notes ring out in those 4-note chords. So that's kind of something that's still part of my process. In the fourth section is where it starts getting really fast. Now, what I've done here is spend hours basically trying to get speed and accuracy. I'm mostly there with the speed, but the accuracy can be a little hit or miss. I'd like to be able to get this where I know I'm gonna hit the right notes every time I play it. I'm not quite there yet, but I'm getting close. And then we get to the beast of the song. This is the fifth part, I believe, if I'm counting correctly. This is where the right hand starts flying and the left hand takes the melody. So it's two of my nemesis, is left hand melody and then really, really fast patterns. These patterns took me a long time to work out because it's not even that they're fast, it's just that they're kind of weird. Like the note patterns themselves are kind of weird. So I had to memorize it as I went in order to get the speed. Now this is where I usually make the most mistakes. Whenever I do a full playthrough, this is where I tend to have to pause, hesitate, slip. So this is a part that still needs to settle. And I haven't quite found the expression here yet either because I'm so focused on keeping things in control and keeping my fingers from like flying apart. So that's something I hope comes together in the next month or so. Towards the ending, we have the sixth part where we have another like left-hand arpeggio section. This is a lot like the first time this section happened, where I just kind of have to work on control, making sure I'm landing on the right notes. And then that dives right into our ending, which is basically a repeat of the really fast right hand melody left hand part that I struggled with so much. And I spent a lot of time working out this part as well. They're very similar, so I had similar problems here. But all in all, I think I've got like a good grasp on it. If I was asked to perform this, I might not be super comfortable today, but if I was asked to perform this in a month, it would probably go much better. But I wanted to finish this video today because, well, the song's called November and it's the last day of November today. So I just kind of thought, you know what, I'm done like really devoting all of my practice time to this one. I'm ready to move on to something new and just kind of let this one settle on the back burner. So I hope you enjoyed this tour. It's a little bit different than anything we've done before. I'd love to hear your feedback and if you want to see me do things like this in the future. Coming into the holiday season, I'm probably not going to have a ton of time to practice, so I wouldn't necessarily expect a video on this like anytime soon, like another one of these, but we'll see how it goes. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Sorry if you heard my cat scratching in her litter box.